deriving from practices of Native Americans, First Nations, and Indigenous people, the circle practice or the circle process is at its essence a story sharing process which brings together people as equals to have open exchanges about difficult issues and painful experiences in an atmosphere of respect and concern for everyone. A healing circle uses the same safe space, the same respect and equal footing, the same vulnerability and attention to all members of the circle, but its purpose is to repair harm, done to the harm party by the person who harmed, done to the community by the harming act, and also the harm that lives within the harming party. It opens a safe space to talk about the impact of the incident or incidents, necessary actions needed to offer comfort and healing to the involved parties. Within the circle, the community is asked to find consensus about next steps needed to repair the impact, strengthen the community, and move forward from it in a peaceful way. The circle includes care for the person who has done the harm as well, and it allows the participants to better understand the harming party's circumstances and what might have led to the incident. So there's a difference between meeting in a circle and invoking or calling a circle. The circle is the mother of methodologies. It's the fire camp or the campfire that our ancestors gathered around to build tribe and clan. It's a circle, and it's also a living entity, a full-bodied presence that we are creating together. The circle is an invitation to discover a deeper way of being together, protected by agreements, which we'll talk about later. To reiterate, this method at its roots is inclusive and in essence is a community acting in community to process a shared experience. Healing circles are not about causing people to change, but rather inviting each participant to change oneself and one's relationship with and inside the community. Because each circle is a living entity unto itself, the outcome of any given circle is unique. The community in the circle will determine the path the dialogue takes, guided and facilitated by the host and guardian. Often it takes the calling of more than one circle to get an outcome that is an acceptable consensus of the circle community. The success of a circle is measured by the progress that is made towards healing. And since no two parties or communities heal the same, each outcome will look different from each other. But although the outcomes and the work inside each circle is unique, the process remains consistent. Key components of the healing circle should be attended to with intention and patience. And let's look at that process. So we begin with the opening or welcome. This is where we leave the world outside and behind us. We step away from the busyness of our everyday life and we commit ourselves fully to the circle. The next phase could be an optional icebreaker, and the icebreaker event or part of the healing process, the healing circle process, is a place to find comfort in the space, to practice eye contact, to share vulnerability, and to kind of get warmed up for the main event. Before the main event, we establish expectations. We agree on the ground rules. We agree on the purpose and intention of the circle. We introduce the host and guardian, introduce all the participants, and we review an agenda for the steps in the circle so that all the expectations are laid out before we start. The first main event, as I like to think of it, is the heart sharing part of the process. This is where we respond to prompts. What happened? Why? How did it impact the parties involved? And this session can repeat with more than one prompt. After a series of heart sharing with different prompts, then comes next the harvesting. And again, we respond to prompts. So now that we know what happened and why and how it impacted the parties, now what? Consensus is formed. Community participates in discussions about next steps that can be taken. plans for repair and restoration. And then once the consensus has been achieved, hopefully, or close to it, a direction, we have the closing. And the closing is just as important as each of the other steps. We acknowledge our shared purpose. We close the raw vulnerability. We're reminded of the confidentiality, and it is important. And we move out of the space with grace and comfort. And it's a key, because the re-entry process, after being so vulnerable and spending time in such a safe space, the re-entry into the real life or the world outside can be a bit jarring. So there's still much more beyond the steps of the circle itself. So I'll pass it to Melissa now to tell us a little bit about those details.
Thank you, Rachel. So as Rachel mentioned, there are some specific elements of the circle process or the healing circle that are essential. The three that we have listed here are what we are referring to very specifically. And that would be the talking piece, the noisemaker, as well as the centerpiece. Each one of these, again, is essential to the process. The talking piece itself forms respectful listening and reflection in a safe setting. Essentially, it prevents the group from debating or attacking each other, and even one person from dominating the conversation. The person holding it is the person talking. Before the circle is opened, the significance of the talking piece is shared with all members, and how it is used is agreed upon. Typical agreements might include respect or speaking from the heart, maybe giving everyone a chance to talk. It may also look like agreeing to disagree in a certain way, agreeing for no name calling, or attacking. The second essential piece is the noisemaker. And the noisemaker is held by the guardian of the circle. It is employed by the guardian and is generally a gentle noise. It might be a chime or a bell, maybe a soft rattle. And it's really used to get everyone's attention, to encourage everyone to do breath work, as well as take a moment of silence. At any point in time during a healing circle, any member that is participating can ask for the noisemaker to be sounded. Finally, there's the centerpiece. The centerpiece provides comfort and a place for people to rest their eyes. Sometimes participants find it difficult to look at one another. It may feel more calming for folks to look at a calming element, such as a candle or something that has significant calming features to them. It may even have a spiritual component. But again, the centerpiece is a place for reflection for the group, potentially for the individual, to help them center themselves and have the awareness that they are joined together in community in each other's presence. As a piece of prep work, special consideration really should be given to each of these components to ensure that they are relevant to the circle for which they are being used. And then, of course, there are other considerations when it comes to healing circles, some of which include communications, like invitations, emails. How will those be managed? Who will be in charge of them? Environment is also important, especially with ODR on the rise, or online dispute resolution. Environments are now changing. So these healing circles could very well be held in person, but also virtually or even potentially hybrid. It's important that when selecting an environment, you're choosing one for the audience. You're also thinking highly about neutrality. It should not be held in a space where someone is considered to have the home field advantage. It also should not be held in a space where one party has an associated power or influence. The space or the environment should make participants feel safe and thought of and cared about. As a third consideration, equity in a healing circle is extremely important. Equity of experience, equity of talking time. The circle should be experienced by each participant at the same level, or the opportunity to access at the same level. So relevant power from the outside world essentially melts away. Whatever title you had before you stepped in the circle is not the title you have in the circle. All players are even-footed. Other elements to consider, or even that might be observed in a healing circle, are history and tradition. Of course, nodding back to the indigenous origins of healing circles. Some folks do this through a land acknowledgement. Others have special ceremonies. Ultimately, it is about honoring, recognizing the historical and traditional origins of healing circles. Interrelativity and inclusion, as Rachel mentioned, is absolutely foundational to healing circles. Interrelativity in the sense that everyone in the circle is somehow related, nodding to the tradition that all of life is related, and therefore it's important to include all parties of the incident, and thus the nod to inclusion. Other logistics to consider might be things like who is doing the administrative functions, who's funding the session, will there be a survey, or is accessibility possible by all parties? And so with that, there are some advantages and disadvantages of healing circles, and I'm going to ask Rachel to share those with us.
Thank you, Melissa. So as with any solution that addresses conflict, there are advantages, limitations, challenges, and impacts. And so I'll just review and highlight some here for us for consideration. Advantages of the healing circles, it includes the harming party, the harmed party, and the community to reach consensus about repairing and strengthening community. So as you probably noticed, both Melissa and I are repeating a lot of the same things that are very key to what a successful healing circle is. Another advantage is that it moves the parties and or the conflicts outside of real life, and it creates a safe environment where shared vulnerability is honored. It lets each of the parties meet on equal footing, and it moves the recovery away from the judicial system and refocuses the response from punitive to restorative. But there are limitations too. It takes time for all the participants to find safety and comfort in a new environment. Sometimes even with explaining the whole thing, some parties might expect unrealistic outcomes. It is, and you'll hear our host asking questions to that end when he begins our circle. It is also successful. It is only successful if all parties are willing to share from the heart and actively look for a solution rather than retribution. And some outcomes might not be accepted inside institutional policies and constructs. So like limitations and challenges, sometimes a healing circle might be too spiritual or woo-woo, as you will, and it's too foreign of a way to communicate for some. Getting buy-in from these participants is to fully give themselves to the circle might be a challenge. Not everybody has the capacity to talk about difficult issues in the context of community life. And participants unfamiliar with circles may need assistance respecting space and others. I'm sure some of you have met people who are fighting and arguing might be in their absolute comfort zone, but peacefully discussing difficult issues, admitting responsibility and accountability, or truly deciding what change would make healing begin aren't really that easy for them to even think about. But the impacts of healing circles, and I feel this in my heart, are tremendous. Circles build community. They teach respect. They heal harm. They care for the harmed as well as the harmer. They heal and repair and strengthen relationships, and they build consensus. And successful circles create new believers. And this is my favorite part. They understand alternate dispute resolution like they've never experienced after they've gone through a healing circle. And future conflicts will be approached differently by these folks. True believers teach and encourage others to participate in these kinds of practices in the normal course of life and as the first solution when conflict arises. So, as Michael Lerner asked, what is a healing circle? And he states, if it touches your heart and guides you on your path, it is a healing circle. So let's get to one.
So in conjunction with our presentation, we would like to provide a simulation of a healing circle. And we have a specific fact pattern or incident facts to share with you. I'll read those now. A teenager brings an unloaded pistol to school in her backpack and shows it to her friend. We'll say someone is traumatized at the sight of it and so reports it to her teacher. Within minutes, the offender, the gun, and the teacher are all in the principal's office. No one was harmed. The entire school is aware of the incident, and the questions and the conjectures are on everyone's mind. The local newspaper got wind of the event, and as carefully as a school information officer could be, an article was written on the front page of their paper that was scary for the readership and started the rumor mill spreading spreading fear and confusion throughout the small town. A thoughtful citizen who was aware of the NCRP program at CSUDH contacted our department thinking that we may be of help. The NCRP team reached out to the student district with the suggestion of a healing circle, and they were more than happy to have one conducted with the hope of resolving their dilemma. The objective of this simulated healing circle is for the NCRP team to create a safe space that allows the stakeholders to communicate about the firearm incident. Using dialogue and best practices, circle members will hopefully move from a space of uncertainty and fear to a position of understanding and empowerment. And with that, we present you our simulation. Participants. Peter and Sydney will be our host and guardians respectively. Myself, Melissa, and Lisa will be students. I am the harmed student, and Lisa will be the offender. Rachel will be our teacher in the simulation, and Sandy will be our principal. So let's see the simulation. Peter, if you would.
Good evening. I'm Peter. I'm your host for the evening, and I'd like to welcome you to this healing circle. Would the participants please introduce themselves by first names, and if they wish, pronouns that they'd like to be referred to, please, one at a time.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'm the teacher. And Melissa?
Oh, sorry. I'm Melissa. I'm a student here.
Thank you.
I'm Lisa. I'm a student.
Thank you. Okay. I will introduce our guardian guide in a few moments. I want to thank you all for being here and open to this experience. I'd like to start off with a land acknowledgement. The land that we stand on today is that of the indigenous peoples who lived here for some 2,000 years in virtual freedom and harmony. The Ohlone tribes and others, with their nonviolent approach to life, their compassion for all people, the fact that they shared everything with each other. There was no structured economy, no land ownership, and certainly not policing. They gathered at the end of each day around campfires, much like the symbolic candle we have here today, to share their thoughts and remind each other of the bond of kindness that they had with all people. If they encountered problems, to talk them through and listen for guidance from the great mother of all, and to follow the answers that came to their consciousness. We're here today to acknowledge that we're on that same land, guided and supported by Mother Earth, and are aware of the principles and people's harmonious lifestyle. We hope that the oneness expressed in their day can guide us here today to find healing and resolve our problems. Would anyone else like to give an acknowledgement for the land? Hearing none, I'd like to introduce Sydney, who is our guardian guide for today, who will give us some details that will help us to have a successful healing circle. Sydney?
Thank you, Peter. Before I get going, I think we may have missed Sandra in our introduction. Sandra, did you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sorry.
I'm the principal of this school.
My apologies for leaving you out. Thanks for popping up.
Thank you, Sandra. So today, as our guardian, my role is going to be simply to protect our space, to make everyone feel safe, to be honest and open. But I also invite everybody else to aid me in protecting this space. So I'm going to first start off with going through our journey today. So we've just completed our opening and introductions. We're going to go into some expectations and ground rules. And then once we're done with all the logistics, we're going to go into our heart sharing and harvesting. And this is going to be the bulk of our circle today. After that, we're going to close with a grounding meditation and a poem, and then we are going to adjourn. We also wanted to give everybody some tips for today. These are just things that we suggest keeping in mind both during the circle and after the circle. So we invite everyone to practice self-care and grace for others. With that, I also invite everyone to practice grace for themselves. We also request that everyone join this session from a quiet space. This is really just to ensure that there's not a lot of distractions and you can really center yourself on what people are saying within the circle. We also want to point out that comfort is key here. So if you can, be in a comfortable chair, have some water, maybe some tea, some tissues, just having everything that you need so we can avoid people stepping away if we can prevent that. We also ask that everybody fully participate with their videos on, and they're muting themselves when they're not speaking and unmuting when they are speaking. Leading into that last point, we request that you only turn off your camera to indicate that you stepped away. I also invite you to message me as the guide if you're going to be stepping away for a long period, using the restroom, or you just need to take a minute. We can check in real quick. All right, so now we're going to just do some Zoom logistics to make sure that everyone's comfortable with our virtual space. First, we're going to ask that everyone view this session in speaker view. So to do that, you're going to go to your top upper right-hand corner, and you're going to press speaker. We also ask that prior to speaking, you're going to be unmuting yourself. But before that, you kindly raise your hand, your digital hand, and wait for the host to recognize you. You may have also noticed that the chat function has been disabled for everybody except myself and Peter. So this is just to avoid everybody talking amongst themselves in the chat, and they're really focused on what's being said within the circle. With that being said, if at any point you need to message Peter or myself, please do not hesitate to. We're free at any point for you to check in with us. And then finally, for inclusivity purposes, live transcriptions and closed captioning has been enabled. So if you want to turn that on, you're just going to press live transcript and then click show subtitles. All right, and then we're going to move straight into our ground rules. And I think it's really important to note that these ground rules are not to make anybody feel like they need to watch themselves overly, or we're just trying to censor you unjustly. These are really to create a sacred space where, again, everyone feels safe to be open and honest. So our first ground rule is we treat each other with kindness and respect. And I'm going to add, we also treat ourselves with kindness and respect. 2, we listen with compassion and curiosity. We're not listening for the best response or right or wrong answers. We're listening with an open heart, with compassion. Number 3, we appreciate the diversity of perspectives. Just recognizing that we all look at things with our own unique perspectives. And today we're going to explore those. And I invite you to also explore your own perspective. Number 4, we honor each other's unique ways of healing and don't presume to advise or fix or try to save each other. I really want us to keep this in mind when we're going through our answers, just to really speak from our heart, not to tell anybody what they should be thinking, what they should be doing. We're going to have to come back to these if that's being done. Number 5, we hold all stories shared in the circle confidential, meaning what's said in the circle stays in the circle. And this is the ground rule that's really going to make everybody feel safe and like they are in a protected environment. Number 6, and our final ground rule is we trust each of us has guidance we need within us, and we rely on the power of silence to access it. This is the ground rule that we're going to come back to. If, as a collective group, we might stray away from these, we're going to invite silence in order to ground ourselves back. So if everybody feels comfortable with these, we're going to drop them in the chat so you don't need to memorize them or anything. But if you can agree to these, I invite you to raise your hand in the raise hand reactions. Right, thank you. With that, I think we're good to move on. All right, so we're going to move into the explanation of our talking piece. So this is a foundational aspect of any healing circle. So I ask that everybody grabs either a pen, a remote, a water bottle, a phone, anything that they have near them. You don't need to overthink it, but anything near you that you can use as your talking piece. Once you have it, I invite you to hold it up in the camera just so we can see what everybody's using. I see we got a phone, another pen. Awesome. All right, and now I invite everybody to put their talking piece in the center right in front of them, and that's where it's going to stay until you're ready to talk. So the way that this is going to work is, if you look at the list here, we have Lisa, Melissa, Rachel, and Sandy. This is who you're sitting next to in our circle, and who you're going to be passing next to. So when we enter our heart stirring round, we're going to have everybody focus on the center. We're going to propose a question for everybody to consider. And if you listen to your heart and you want to start off the conversation, then we ask you to raise your digital hand. and then you can respond to the prompt. So say Melissa is the first one and she wants to answer, she would raise her hand. Peter or I would call on her. She would grab her talking piece and she would share from her heart. And then from there, when she's done, it would go to Rachel, who can either share or pass. So we're not going to force anybody to talk, but when it's your turn, you either share or pass. And then from there, we would go to Sandy and to Lisa. And once everybody shares, that'll kind of complete that rotation. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right. And if at any point you get confused, please feel free to message me. All right, and now we're going to go into our other fundamental part of a healing circle, and this is the noise maker. So I will be holding on to the noise maker. It looks like this. It sounds like this. And when I sound the noise maker, I ask that everybody stop action, they stop speaking, they mute themselves. We're going to take a collective deep breath, and then we're going to rest in a space of silence. At that point, I'll either bring us back to our ground rules and maybe remind us of some of those, or maybe we'll redirect our energy or address even just like a milestone that we might have made. It's important to note, though, that even though I'm the one holding the noisemaker, any member of the circle can initiate the noisemaker. So you can either do that by raising your hand, unmuting yourself, and just say, I'd like to hear the noisemaker. Or you can message me, you can just say noisemaker, and I'll know that it's time to call for it. We can do that anonymously, and I won't make it clear who called for it. So if everybody feels comfortable with that, then I think we're good to go into our grounding exercise with Peter.
Very good. Thank you, Sydney. Lots to think about. May I ask you all to close your eyes for a moment and breathe deeply and slowly, just for a few moments. Thank you. Now I'd like to read a short poem from one of the indigenous peoples of our country. It's entitled The Lakota Prayer. Wakan Tonka, great mystery. Teach me how to trust my heart, my mind, my intuition, my inner knowing, the senses of my body, the blessings of my spirit. Teach me to trust these things so that I may enter my sacred space and love beyond my fear, and thus walk in balance with the passing of each glorious sun. Thank you. The circle is now open. When I ask a question today, each of you will have the opportunity, as was pointed out, to respond from your heart. When you're prepared to speak, use the raise hand feature, and we'll take you in that order. Before we begin, I'd like to ask, and you can respond to this if you would, are you coming to the healing circle today with any expectations? I see a hand raised. Is that Rachel?
Thank you. Yes. As the teacher whose classroom was, so tremendously disrupted by all of this misbehavior, I want my expectation of this whole thing is I want a decision made that restores the peace in my classroom. My classroom has been for years and years, decades even, has been a peaceful place, and the rules are set, people follow them, everybody's treated the same, expectations are level field. And man, I just knew when Lisa came in, she was going to be a troublemaker on the very first day of class. And I just, I hold everybody to the same expectations. And so I don't know what went wrong, but I want my classroom back.
Thank you. So let's begin with the heart sharing portion of the circle. This is where the questions will help to determine the problems we are facing and how we can individually feel about it. The school that you're all associated with had an event occur that has left feelings of uncertainty and fear. We're here to examine those feelings and grow a deeper understanding of what led up to this event and how we can support one another in the best way possible. There are no right or wrong answers here, only our own unique perspectives. This is the first of multiple circles, and we hope that you will find an opportunity to build a foundation here for future healing. We're not trying to fix or solve anything today, but open our hearts and listen and understand. Let's get started, shall we? Remember, we're here for healing. We're not here for judging. So here's the first of our series of questions. How are you feeling right now? What's on your heart? Fear, anger, sadness? You may begin when you're ready.
Sandra, was that a hand I saw?
Yes, I wanted to say that I'm feeling a little confusion, quite frankly. I'm here as the principal of the school to try to gather up information, form a direction of travel, and then create a plan to restore the equilibrium that we've lost. And I'm not quite certain how to go about doing that.
Thank you.
From there, it looks like we're going to pass to Lisa.
Okay.
If you want to grab your talking piece.
I'm not sure how I'm feeling. I just figure whatever I say, we're here because of me. So I'm probably just going to be looked at as a bad kid no matter what.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Looks like we're going to be passing to Melissa.
I'm super scared. I don't. I'm really here because Miss Sandy said I have to come.
Thank you. Rachel, do I see your hand?
Yes. Thank you. You know, when you first asked the question, before I heard the kids talk, you know, my first thought was, you know, I'm mad, I'm bummed, I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed. You know, I don't know I just don't know where we are right now. I don't know. Everything has always been okay. And then all of a sudden it's not. And I mean, look at poor Melissa. She's crying. You know, I don't know. I guess I'm out of my league. I have no idea what to do. And I'm frustrated by that. And it's just upsetting. It's very upsetting.
Thank you. Have we heard from everybody, Sydney? Okay.
Yes.
We'll move on to the second question. I'm sorry?
Yes, and thank you, Rachel, for adding.
Thank you, Rachel. Do you feel you have a part in the problem? Rachel?
I think I'm probably going to be your big talker here. I'm used to standing in front of the classroom teaching. You know, I'd love to say that I don't have a part to play in this, that I had no part of this. But, you know, watching these kids in this environment when they're not worried about necessarily what they're saying, or people the other students making fun of them, or that they're going to get in trouble by sharing with us. You know, I'm watching, just look, Lisa's so downtrodden. I don't think I've ever seen her like this before. She's just always been seems like she's gone out of her way to make trouble. And now this is the first time I've actually seen that she is upset by her own behavior. It's always been that she's been righteous. And, you know, like I said, poor Melissa's so upset. So, you know, if I think about your question, you know, with my whole heart, I suppose I have been part of the problem, because I create the environment where the incident happened. You know, what could I have done better? Maybe instead of, I don't know, maybe instead of just getting mad at the behavior and, you know, sending everybody to the principal, maybe I could have created a different environment that wouldn't have caused Lisa to feel like she needed to bring a gun. I mean, I don't want to think that. I absolutely don't want to think that. I don't want to think I had any part in this, because nothing like this has ever happened before. And everybody says I'm a good teacher, but, you know, maybe I did have a part in the problem.
Thank you. Let's see, I see Sandy's hand up.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. I want to say that I have spent some time with this young lady. She seems to be in my office at least twice a week. I have had her say some very colorful language to me. I've been the principal for 15 years. I've dealt with quite a lot of trouble. And this young lady is an exceptional problem. I probably do bear some responsibility, because perhaps I should have considered a long suspension. Perhaps she needed to be out of the system for a while.
Okay, can I ask you to pause for a moment, please? Our
Yes.
guide has something to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody mute themselves. I'd like everybody to take a collective deep breath. One more just for good measure. I'd like us to take this moment to rest in a space of silence. Thank you. I would just like to bring the group back to our ground rules. I think we've moved a bit away from it. I think it's important to keep in mind, one, that we're treating everybody with kindness and respect. And two, that we're not attempting to fix or place blame or tell anybody what to do. I really invite us all to look at these questions, speak from our heart, and not point any fingers anywhere. I'm feeling good in our moment of silence. Sandra, I invite you to continue, but if you deviate from the rules anymore, we're going to have to pass the talking stick.
Thank you.
I believe I've made my point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. I think we're going to be moving to Lisa now.
Okay. Lisa, do you remember the question?
Can you repeat it?
Do you feel you have a part in the problem?
I did bring the gun to school. It wasn't loaded. It can't even fire. I did play a part. There's more to it than just me. But one thing that I do want to say that's bothering me is Melissa. She was nowhere in the plan. None of this was ever meant to make her feel scared or cry. So it's not her problem, and I'm sorry, Melissa, you got caught up in it.
Thank you. Have we all replied to this question? Does anyone have anything more before we move on?
We need to pass the talking stick to Melissa, and thank you, Lisa, for sharing. But Melissa, will pass to you.
I was okay with not talking because I think everyone knows that it's my fault. I'm the one who said something. If I hadn't said anything, Lisa would. I don't know. I don't know. And now everyone has to be here and everyone hates me. And so, yeah, I'm the person who told. I told.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. What role might you have played?
I honestly think one of the kids should talk right now.
I'll go because it's quite obvious. I brought the gun to school.
Thank you, Lisa. We're going to pass the talking stick to Melissa now.
I don't want to talk.
That's
Please.
okay.
Okay.
We can pass it. And thank you, Melissa, for your bravery for being here. And let us know if you want us to come back to you. We'll pass to Rachel.
Well, what role might I have played? I mean, I've been going through it in my head over and over and over again, you know, with that gun. All of a sudden I look up, I'm, you know, in the middle of my lesson, and there she is holding that gun, and I'm thinking, what role might I have played? The way my mind works is kind of to think about what role I should have been playing, right? Like, isn't part of my responsibility to keep these kids safe? What if that gun had been loaded? You know, what if some horrible disaster would have happened? That would have been on me. So I don't know. I'm all these questions are kind of making me replay the whole thing and replay how I feel about the whole thing. And it doesn't seem like any of my emotions and the kind of my reactions at the beginning make much sense after listening to the students. So the role I played probably was I didn't listen. I wasn't a good listener. Like, I think if I had, I don't know, I think of a lot of it's almost like, what role didn't I play, right? Or should I have played? But I think if I had been paying more attention to these students than I was my lesson plan and my rules and my equal treating everybody the same, even if they weren't the same, you know, not listening, not really listening, you know, just going about my daily job. I think that's the role I played. And I'm not feeling great about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. We're going to pass to Sandra.
Well, I will say that the district office has been sending out some unpleasant memos about the counseling, and that we have to cut that from the budget, and that there's an unspoken mandate that we should not encourage students to seek counseling services. And possibly I might have been responsible for not standing up for the counseling program, because if anyone needs counseling, I do believe it's Lisa. And possibly I might bear some responsibility for not advocating for support for students. However, we do have a terrible budget, and I am fighting with money to keep the lunch program running. So what can I do?
Thank you. Shall we move on?
Yeah, I think we just completed. And thank you, Sandra.
Now we're going to begin the harvesting portion of the healing circle. It's designed to get at what we would all like to learn from this, from the wisdom of the group, from each other. So our first question is, who or what needs healing? I see Melissa's hand.
Thank you. I think everybody needs to feel better. Like everybody. I think even Lisa, because it's important. I'm only 14. I don't want to think about this my whole life. I don't want to be scared. I don't want Miss Rachel to be scared. I think Lisa is scared. And I think everybody just needs to, like you said, they need to heal. They need to feel better. Everybody. That's my answer. Thank you, Mr. Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. We're going to pass to Rachel.
Well, that was just very brave, Melissa, for saying those things. And I think first and foremost, the kids need to heal. They need healing. And if you think about how, I mean, right away, I kind of feel like, oh, me, I need to heal. I mean, this happen in my classroom? But then if you think about, like, I'm an adult, right? And these kids are 14. It's just, they need healing. They need the support. Even Lisa needs so much healing because it's not a happy child, an unburdened child who comes to school with a gun. She's not been listened to. She calls herself a troublemaker, and that nobody's going to believe her. So I truly believe that well, we all need to heal from the incident for sure, like the whole community, because just playing what ifs is nuts in your head. But like, if we're truly talking about like who needs it most and who needs it first, it's these girls and anybody else who might be having the same struggles and that we haven't recognized. They come to school, we have no idea what happens to them before they show up on campus or after they leave. And although I don't say it's my responsibility to know or help, or well, maybe not help, but to know what's going on there, I certainly can have more compassion. And I have the tools because I'm an adult to try to heal some of that so that they feel safe again. And then I get what I want, right? Which I said at the beginning, my classroom goes back to normal and people are safe. And I guess if I change things, then I can help the healing, and then it'll heal me too. So I think that's kind of a big roundabout way to say it. We all do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. We're going to pass to Sandra now.
So thank you, Rachel. I am so glad that you brought that up about that the community needs healing. You know, there's a lot of parents on the PTA that are very worried about what's happening here. And they've brought up several things at the last meeting. One of them is to possibly cause more expenses by having a metal detector and lock down security people. And this is just a little too expensive. So the sooner that we can get the community satisfied, the sooner we can get the school back on track again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, we'll pass to you.
I definitely want Melissa to heal. I'm sorry that this involved her and hurt her like that. I feel like healing for me will be when I'm 18 and I leave. at home, at school, I feel like everyone just manhandles me, rough handles me. The SRO, my parents. So I'm just waiting till I'm 18. And then I'll leave, and that's when my healing will start.
Thank you, Lisa, for your honesty and your vulnerability. I see we have Sandra, you have your hand raised.
Yes, and I want to say something to Lisa. Lisa, we have a pilot program where students who don't fit into a traditional classroom may be able to attend and
Up,
Hmm,
we have our guide giving us the,
Thank you. Thank you. I invite everybody to mute themselves. Again, we're going to take another collective deep breath. Focus on your breathing while we sit in another moment of silence. Thank you. And I just want us to sit in this moment for a second and remember our agreed upon guidelines. We are not here to give anybody advice or to tell them what to do. We're just going to speak from our own experience. I appreciate the vulnerability and the honesty that everyone's bringing. I'm not here to overregulate, but I want to protect this space. And also, in the interest of time, I think it's important that we move on to our next question. So thank you.
Thank
Peter,
you,
go ahead.
thank you, Sydney. Our next question is, what part does the circle play in all this?
Rachel, you can start us off. You have the talking stick.
Sure. Well, I have to say that I've never actually seen either one of my students be so forthcoming. I think it's the circle. It's the space that you guys have created here, along with the rules, you know, where we really have one focus. But I wonder if it's enough. I mean, I'm not hearing, I don't know. I think it's like, it seems like the circle has got it started, but like, I just wonder like what happened. I wonder what happens next. But I like what I'm seeing with the girls in my class are talking to each other and they're talking to us. And it's not an easy conversation. So I think that's one of the reasons why that's the circle, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll pass to Sandra.
well, now I do see something positive here. And please don't shake that thing at me. I want to say that if everyone is talking, then they're feeling better and they may not need counseling. And that's a positive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. We're going to pass to Lisa now.
I don't really understand the question, except that we were all at the school.
So the question, I'll restate the question. What part do you see as the circle having to play in this.
Um,
I think if you don't mind me saying, I think it's after the fact at this point. We haven't had a circle prior to the event. So let's think about it as the circle today and not what we might have done earlier.
so maybe getting us all together. I had given me a chance to say sorry to Melissa because I didn't know that this affected her so bad. I know none of you guys believe in me, but if I would have never brought the gun if it was loaded.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We're going to pass to Melissa now.
I could go. I agree with Lisa. I think because I was so scared to come. And I think if we didn't have a circle, I would probably ask my mom to put me to a different school. I didn't think she even cared. But I think she does. And you, I mean, I go to school with Lisa. So you guys don't see her, but she always playing these jokes and stuff. It's just this one was too much. And I'm glad that we could talk about it. If I think that's the question. But I think it was good too.
Thank you. So I think we're ready to move on to the next question. Has healing begun? I see Sandy's hand up.
Well, I just want to step out of my role as principal to say something personal to everyone. I have worked very hard to get where I am today. I have paid a lot of attention to being an administrator, and I want to say that I am only 2 years from retiring, and this situation has put a very big black mark on my history as a payroll employee. And I have a lot of pride in my work. And so therefore, I would need to have something very special happen in order for me to be able to walk away from this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. We're going to pass to Lisa now.
I already said my healing will begin when I would leave when I'm 18. When this is over, I go back in there with my parents. And tomorrow I go back to school where the SRO started the whole school to call me tantrum baby. So I don't know. Probably not.
Thank you. Melissa, did I see your hand go up?
I don't know. I don't really know, Mr. Peter. Or maybe. My hand was up, but I don't know anymore. I think so, maybe. Yeah. I think Lisa knows. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Has everybody had a chance to speak on this? We'll move to the next question.
Rachel, did you get to go?
I'd like to speak.
Please.
So before the girls answered, I thought I was going to say yes. I thought healing had begun, but it doesn't feel like Lisa's healing has begun. And Melissa, you know, she stopped crying, so that's a kind of a good sign. But I don't, but like, has healing, can any of us really truly heal if all of us haven't healed? Like if Lisa gets left to go back with her parents, and none of us really knows what that looks like, and and then she's doesn't have a good time at school either, and so if she's not healing, then how can any of us really heal? Right? Am I right with that? That's what I think.
Just in clarification, and thank you for your comment. Maybe we should make that the next and last question, the one that you asked. Can any of us heal if we don't all heal? Yes.
I
Right.
feel like my heart is still going to hurt unless I see these girls get into a better place. I don't. So I think the answer to that question is no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And we'll pass to Sandra.
Well, I can't really speak for anyone else, but I think that this may be an event that should be looked upon as a turning point, because although the school district claims that they have no funding, I'm quite sure that after this, they will have to find resource, because it's quite obvious that I won't be able to mitigate this sort of thing without some sort of assistance. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to Lisa. Thank you, Sandra.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm still a kid and I don't even know what all that looks like.
Thank you.
All right. And then finally, Melissa, we'll end it off with you.
I think people can heal. Sometimes it's not all together because we're different. But I think people can heal, and sometimes when you get better in front of people, it helps them get better. So I think we can.
I'm going to finish with the last question, and this is a question that I want you to take home with you. We don't need an answer today. We would like to hear an answer, but we don't need it today. Where are you feeling we should go in our next circle? If you want to respond, you may, but I'd like you to take that with you as well.
In the interest of time, I'm going to have everybody think about that while I do our grounding meditation to close us out.
Very good.
So I invite us all to close our eyes again, to take 3 deep breaths in and 3 deep breaths out. 3-second deep breath in, 3-second deep breath out. Continue, focus on your breathing. As we take a moment to appreciate the honesty we came in here with and the openness to the circle experience. We thank you all for being here and appreciate the work that you have done. We hope that further circles can continue this healing. Please take one more deep breath in and another deep breath out. You may open your eyes. And again, I thank you.
I have a short prayer that I'd like to have us leave with. This is called the Cherokee Prayer. Peace and happiness are available in every moment. Peace in every step. We shall walk hand in hand. There are no political solutions to spiritual problems. Remember, if the Creator put it here, it is the right place. The soul would have no rainbow if the eyes had no tears. Tell the people that since we were promised, we should never be moved. We have been moved 5 times. So let's blow out the candle now. And I want to thank you again for all of your wonderful participation today. Go in peace.